July. It is Independence Day, Independence Weekend. It was loud in our neighborhood last night. I don't know about y'all. There has been an uptick in a little bit higher rate of fireworks, I believe, as mortar shells have become the norm. So it went on for quite a while last night. I think until 11 plus. But it's also a reminder that, that I'm involved with one race, and I've become much more aware that this day it means different things to different people. And the freedom that we have in this country is astounding because it also includes the freedom to disagree. And we're seeing a lot of that happening, and I got to tell you, that's a country that can do that, a country that can have a dissenting voice and allow that voice to be heard is astonishing. And that's our country. So we celebrate the freedom that was bought so long ago for us by our forefathers. And I recognize on this day that there is still a lot of work to do to become as free as we want to be for all people. So we still got work to do. Now that has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about this morning. A little bit, I'm going to talk about freedom. The fruits of freedom. There's a song that we're going to sing in a little while, so get ready. A passage is out of Galatians chapter 5. First one, and then I'm going to go to 13. It says, for freedom, you know what? It's been a while. Y'all want to read with me?
Yeah.
For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to the yoke of slavery. For you were called to freedom, brothers and sisters. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence, but through love become slaves to one another. For the whole law is summed up in a single commandment: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. If, however, you bite and devour one another, take care that you are not consumed by one another. Live by the Spirit, I say, and do not gratify the desires of the flesh. For what the flesh desires is opposed to the Spirit, and what the Spirit desires is opposed to the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to prevent you from doing what you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not subject to the law. Now the works of the flesh are obvious: fornication, impurity, licentiousness, idolatry, sorcery, enmities, strife, jealousy, anger, quarrels, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these. I am warning you, as I warned you before, those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is much shorter. It's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, gentleness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. There is no law against such things. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also be guided by the Spirit. It's the word of God for all people. Thanks be God. Where did that come from? That's been a while. So we enter into Galatians this week, and it's appropriate that we look at freedom, that we look at what it means to live in the freedom of Christ. This is the life of the Spirit. It's easy to get bound up in kind of the rules and guidelines, but God is not calling us to be bound up. He's calling us to freedom. So he's calling us to turn away from the bondage of the law and turn towards the life of the Spirit, to turn away from a life that's focused on the flesh and what's in it for me, to what's in it for God and what's in it for others. And it's a different transition. Paul, throughout this letter to the Galatians, had been trying to say to them, to talk to these guys and point out to them that they were, look, y'all are divided into different groups and into different factions, and these guys were so entrenched in their position that they wouldn't move and they wouldn't hear one another. And he's trying to tell them, he said, look, there's a better way. There's a better way. Jesus didn't come so that you would be enslaved, but so that you might experience a better and freer way of life. didn't come to bind you, came to free you. In fact, Paul may well be trying to say the same to all of us who, for one reason or another, suffer from that same affliction, entrenchment in thinking. Rigidity to the rules, to following of the Bible, just to following the rules, right? To the rigidity of I got to get it just right because I got to earn my way, because that's where it comes from, right? If I can get it just right, then I can earn my way. I'm struggling with that grace thing. I like the idea of grace, but it's hard to grab hold of grace, so I'm going to do it right. And if I do it right, then I'll be okay. Do we want to do it right? Sure. We strive for that. But if we're rigid in our thinking, this message is the same. Paul would be writing to us, and I'm one of them. He would be telling me and you, he'd say, there is a better way. Jesus did not come so that you would live enslaved, so that you might experience a better and a freer way of life. And there is a better way. For you were called to freedom, brothers and sisters. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence. How often do we do that? How often do we do that? But through love, become slaves to one another, become servants to one another. Slave is a powerful word. It's been translated servant in other places. But serve one another. For the whole law is summed up in a single commandment. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself, right? This is part of what Jesus came for. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And our world today tends to get really focused on getting what we want no matter what. If I get what I want, then it's okay. And we forget that there are others. I talked a few weeks ago, turn around, right? To pay attention to what's going on around us. And if we have the opportunity to help someone who may not have had the same advantages or opportunities, maybe we can help them to bring them forward so that we might have true equality, regardless of race, gender, or anything else. Let's help one. Let's turn around. Let's look. And help one another. Let's love our neighbor. Love our neighbor. But we struggle with that. See, my desires take precedent, and then I get the idea of fulfilling myself becomes the greatest importance, and the focus on greed, by the way, is not inclusive just of the world. This is from a gentleman named Millard Fuller. He is the founder of Habitat for Humanity. I think he'll be on the board, so you'll hear more about Habitat this year probably than you have. I'm going to be the chairman this year. So we're going to do some work, amen? Amen. That's going to do some work. Several years ago, this is from a different pastor, Philip Green tells this story, but it's about Millard Fuller. So several years ago, Millard Fuller of Habitat for Humanity addressed the National Press Club on public radio, on which he recalled the workshop he conducted in Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. Some things don't go away very easy. Seminary. Seminary is not the place where faith goes to die. It's the place where faith goes to grow. Where was I? Good luck this morning. I can tell that I'm going to be scattered. So, Fuller. Seminary. There's 200 pastors at this thing that he was talking at. And the assembled pastors quickly pointed toward greed and selfishness as the reasons that the church never had enough money to accomplish what could in the world. So Miller then asked this seemingly innocent question. He said this. He said, is it possible for a person to build a house so large that it's sinful in the eyes of God? Raise your hand if you think so. So all 200 pastors raised their hand. Okay. Then can you tell me at exactly what size, the precise square footage, a certain house becomes sinful to occupy? Silence from the pastors. You heard a pin drop. And finally, a small voice spoke up from the back of the room and said, "But it's bigger than mine." Right? But it's bigger than mine. I know a lot of pastors, some of whom make very good money, and some of whom don't. I know that sometimes even us pastors get into that whole envy thing. Well, I could just have what they have. If, however, you bite and devour one another, take care that you are not consumed by one another. Jesus tells us to love our neighbor. Paul gives it the highest importance, and we still struggle with it. We have a tendency to focus on the things of the world as being of greater importance than the good news of Christ. And that's what it boils down to. Things in the world take over from the good news of Christ. We forget our eternal significance. Did you know that you are eternally significant as a follower of Jesus Christ? You have eternal significance. You are eternal. And there's an eternal significance about you. And we are called to make that eternal difference in the lives of others by working and sharing and turning around and helping and doing the things and being engaged in others' lives. Why we do small groups is why we push for study and all the things that we push for, so that we can engage with others. Service and mission. Go out. I serve. There's so many opportunities. We're headed down to Florida. And we have these opportunities so that we can serve others. When we forget our eternal significance, we forget that we're called to make an eternal difference. And we lose our way. And it may be that we simply choose to focus on things other than the things of the Spirit. That list of Paul's is pretty incredible to read as a group. If you're led by the Spirit, you are not subject to the law. Now the works of the flesh are obvious. Fornication, impurity, licentiousness, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, anger, quarrels, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and he didn't leave there, and things like these. And then he gives the next sentence that we don't listen to all the time. I am warning you. As I warned you before, those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom. God. The transformed life looks different from the life that went on before. If you encounter the living God, what happens?
You can't help but change.
You change. Yeah, you cannot emerge unchanged from that. You encounter the living God, you become changed. And it's that change that impacts the things that you do. I know that we're saved by grace through faith, as Paul tells us. James tells us faith without works is dead. Those things work together, because when I'm saved by grace through faith, I am so grateful that my works change. I will do differently because of the impact of that grace that's been extended to me. These work together. The warning is, I warned you before, those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. There's lots of stuff we're not supposed to do. If you'll give me the slide I was on, it just flip forward a bunch. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I did it last week too. It went like 2 at a time. See, there's lots of stuff that we're not supposed to. I did a whole sermon on do's and don'ts, if you remember that. It was, because I just think that it's really easy to be caught up in the don'ts of our life. It's not that they're not important. There's a lot of other stuff that we're not supposed to do. Doing these things sends us to hell. Doing these things separates us from the kingdom of God here and there, which is interesting because we don't often realize or think about that we are kingdom living right now. When you said yes, you're into the kingdom. It's not later. You're in. This is it. This is what it looks like. So live into that. It should transform your life. It should look different. So if I'm focused so much on the don'ts, then I'm just battling this thing, and it's really tough to do, and it separates us because our focus is on the thing that does don'ts. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out whether others are doing the right thing, whether they're following the way of the law, whether they're enslaved to the flesh. And in the end, many Christians have become enslaved themselves as their focus is so much on the flesh that they forget the things of the Spirit are supposed to take precedence, because my focus is where? Things of the flesh. Where am I spending my time? Things of the flesh. Where do I need to be spending my time? Anywhere but the things of the flesh. But that's where I am. And I'm paying attention for me, and I'm paying attention for you, and now I'm into judgment, now I'm doing all those things. And this was the issue in Galatia. Following the law without understanding the freedom, that freedom doesn't come from the law. It comes from Spirit. It comes from Christ. I am free to dance, right? Yeah. I'm free to run. I learned a long time ago in recovery that the things I focus on gain in importance. If I focus, you've heard this before, if I focus on the problems increase. If I focus on the solutions increase. The way that I frame that in my addiction and my recovery is this: when I was focused on my addiction, I battled my addiction. I was wanting to beat my addiction. I was an addict for 15 years, an alcoholic and an addict. And I fought it, and I knew it was killing me, and I was going to beat it, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to control it, and I'm going to do it. And so I would focus on my addiction, and I would beat it. I'm going to beat it, and I'd be okay for a week or two, and then I proved that I didn't have a problem. So now I'm going to go and I prove that I can control my drinking and my using, which for an addict and alcoholic does not work very well. And so then I would get out of control again. My focus, I'm going to beat it again. I spent years. I spent over a decade. I was very quickly out of control. High school yearbook, I have people say, you might want to get your drinking under control. 11 more years of alcohol and drugs. But I was going to beat it, that addiction, because I knew I had a problem and I was going to beat it. And I lost. And I lost. And I lost because I was focused on the problem. What was the problem? For me, alcohol and drugs was the first step in a long list of work I had to do, but I had to get rid of alcohol and drugs. When I focused on the problem increased. So I fought my addiction until it almost killed me. Attempted suicide at 25, which was not successful.
Thank goodness.
Practice.
I just thought I'd inform you and let you know. It didn't work. And then took 4 more years in addiction that you don't even want to know about. But here's the thing, when I got in recovery and I learned this little tenet, when I focus on the problem increases. When I focus on the solution increases. You know what I started focusing on and why I'm still in recovery? I started focusing on the solution. I stopped battling my addiction. My addiction will kick my butt every time. I know that. I'm out of the ring. You know how you beat 800-pound gorilla? You get out of the ring. That 800-pound gorilla was killing me. So you know what I did? I got out of the ring. I found out what does recovery look like. And I started focusing on recovery. And then this weird thing called sobriety started happening. And then I found out that I was really messed up and I needed to go to counseling. I found out that they wanted to send me to a psychiatrist and an assistant pastor. And did a lot of work to get to be this semi-sane person who stands here every week before you. But my focus is no longer on my addiction. My focus is now on my recovery. I moved from the problem to the solution. And that works in every area of your life. You got stuff going on, you identify the problem. Some of y'all do this for a living. How do you solve stuff? You identify the problem and then you figure out a plan to deal with the problem. What are my solutions? That's how it works. If I focus on the things of the flesh, what's going to be my priority? Things of the flesh. If I focus on the things of the Spirit, what's going to be my priority? Where do I need to focus as a Christian? Things of the Spirit. Do I pay attention? I don't want to do the things of the flesh, right? But I identify them and then I look to solution. There is nothing in our life that God did not, that a problem in our life that God does not provide a path out of. And it always involves other people and us together. And I know that's terrible. Because don't we want to do it all by ourselves? Yes. But together we're so much stronger. And when the Spirit takes priority in my life, it changes things. It's really not mysterious. If we keep focusing on the don'ts and spend less time with the do's of the Spirit, then we end up focusing on the things of the flesh. If I focus on the do's, then things change. So what are some of the do's? This is a great way to learn the fruit of the Spirit if you don't know. The fruit of the Spirit is not a coconut. The fruit of the Spirit is not a coconut. You want to be a coconut? You might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit. Because the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You got to show it. Oh, the fruit of the Spirit is not a coconut. The fruit of the Spirit is not a coconut. You want to be a coconut?
patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Come on, you got it right. There's about 6 more.
The fruit of the Spirit is not a watermelon. You want to be a watermelon. You might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, because the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The fruit of the Spirit is not a fruit. The fruit of the Spirit is not a fruit. You want to be a you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, because the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
We're not there.
The fruit of the Spirit is not a cherry. The fruit of the Spirit is not a cherry.
Right, David?
You want to be a cherry, you might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, because the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
And we're not done even yet.
Yay! Everybody knows that grapes come in bunches.
That's it.
Everybody get in big bunches.
You can't do that.
The fruit of the Spirit is not a grape. The fruit of the Spirit is not a grape. You want to be the grape. You might as well hear it. You can't be a fruit of the Spirit, because the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Got it.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Mike, yeah, that almost everybody in here is going, now why did he do that? He just wasted like 3 minutes of his sermon. And Charlotte and Dave are going, they're going, why does he do all that other stuff? By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Remember, Paul has spent this letter pointing out that the law is not the target. The Spirit is. And this passage, 5:22 and 23, is our focus. This passage is what gives us direction. Paul points us to the ways of the Spirit. The greatest commandment, love your neighbor. How do you do it? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The fruit. You notice there's not an S. It's one fruit of the Spirit. The Christian life exhibits these 9 elements when lived to the fullest. The fruit of the Spirit. What is it? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Look. We do struggle with elements that, look, all of it, we're all different, right? Some people struggle with love, some people struggle with self-control, and all that. We are works in progress. But this is what the Christian life, this is the target. And the beauty of that, there is no law against such things. No law. So I get to choose where my focus is. I get to choose where I spend my time. Do I focus on the things of the flesh and battle them? Do I focus on the fruit of the Spirit and do them and learn more about them? Study your Bible, pray, join a small group, join a couple of people together in some kind of way that we are together. So what I'm saying is this, that focusing on what to do is more important than focusing on what not to do. True freedom is the doing, and bondage results when we focus on the don't do. It's another way to look. If we focus on the doing, then we find that it's going to occupy our time. If I focus on the don'ts, then I'm going to be focusing on, for me, the addiction analogy is me. So if I'm focusing on my addiction, then I'm focusing on the problem, focusing on the things of the flesh. If I focus on recovery, the things of the Spirit, then I have a chance. I have a chance to live a new life. Mike Morkey is an old Christian comedian. 4 former Satanist high priest. He was, when in my early days of Christianity back in the 80s, he was really popular. He said this: I used to think the Bible was a big book of do's and don'ts. That if I followed it, I would end up living in a box, which I didn't do. Remember back in the 70s. But I came to find out that there's a lot more do's than there are don'ts. And if I spent my time doing the do's, I wouldn't have time to do the don'ts. Let's spend our time doing the do's. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also be guided by the Spirit. We live as a people that are working on dying to self, crucifying the flesh, as Paul puts it. And our focus ought to change. It ought to be a focus on the things of the Spirit. It ought not be focused on those old things. It ought to be focused on the new things. We become a new creation. Let's be new creations. Let's be new. The Spirit is our source. The Spirit is our root. We need to embrace the things of the Spirit. Close with this. There's a farmer who planted 2 fruit trees on opposite sides of his property. One of them he planted to provide a hedge to hide the unsightly view of an old landfill. The other to provide a shade to rest under near a cool mountain stream which ran down beside the field. As the 2 trees grew, both began to flower and produce fruit. One day the farmer decided to gather the fruit from the tree nearest his house, the one that he had put between him and the landfill. As he brought the fruit inside the house, he noticed that it didn't look exactly right. It looked a little deformed. The symmetry of the fruit was not very good, but still the fruit looked edible. Later that evening, while sitting on his porch, the farmer took one of the pieces of fruit as a snack. Biting into it, he found it to be extremely bitter, completely inedible. Casting it aside, he looked at the other tree over there by the mountain stream. He walked over there, took a piece of fruit from it, and bit into it. That fruit was so sweet and delicious that he gathered some more pieces of fruit, took them to the house. The fruit was greatly affected by the root. Just as the tree that grew by the landfill gave bitter fruit, the tree by the stream produced sweet fruit, so the Christian life will do the same. Where are we putting our roots now? Because that's going to feed into how we are and how we behave and what we do. Where are your roots? We're going to bear fruit. One way or another. One fruit with many flavors. And it is indeed good. So I guess I'll leave you with this question. What's hanging on your tree?